What would have happened if the Allies had not been able to crack the Enigma code? The first thing is that the Battle of the Atlantic would have lasted much longer, and there would have been far more casualties. The second thing is that in the North African campaign, the Allies would have suffered heavy losses, and Rommel would have achieved greater success there. The third thing is related to Operation Overlord, when the Allies carried out the Normandy landings. Their losses there would have been much higher. And the most important point, if this code had not been cracked, World War II might have lasted 2 to 3 years longer. When the Allies cracked the Enigma code, it was a very significant and important moment in the entire timeline of World War II, because after this, the direction of the war, and especially its duration, changed quite a lot. But what exactly was this Enigma code? If the Allies hadn't cracked it, could the Axis powers have won the war? Was cracking the Enigma code the main reason the Allies won? We will talk about all these things in this video. The story begins during World War II with a machine called the Enigma machine. It was a very advanced electromechanical rotor cipher device which the Germans used it to encrypt and decrypt their messages. In other words, to encode their communications. To understand this in simple terms, imagine that the Navy chief or the top naval leaders made a plan that on a certain date, they would go and attack some British ships. Where the attack would happen, at what time, all the details were included in that plan. Now, the top leaders of the Navy created the plan, but its execution would be carried out by the sailors and officers who were in that area where the British ships were expected to pass. Obviously, it's not like the Navy chief would pick up a phone in Berlin, dial directly to a U-boat commander and say, "Hey, go attack here." That's not how it works. The Navy chief would inform a junior officer, then the message would be encrypted and transmitted to the sailors and officers who were present in the Atlantic Ocean at that time. The advantage of encryption is that if I send you a message and encrypt it, and if some enemy or any third party intercepts that message midway, they still won't be able to read it, even after obtaining it, because the message is encrypted and coded. This is exactly what the German Enigma machine was doing. All three of their forces, the Army, Navy, and Air Force, used the Enigma machine in some way to encrypt their communications. The Allies considered the German Navy's communication to be the most secure, because the Enigma settings used there were very difficult to crack. Germany knew that Britain was able to stay in the war only because the United States was helping them. And by the end of 1940, almost all European countries had either joined Germany, sided with Germany, or had been defeated by Germany. At that point, Britain was standing alone in Europe, and the only reason they could continue fighting was because America was constantly sending supplies through ships across the Atlantic Ocean. The Germans knew that if they could somehow break or block this supply coming through the Atlantic Ocean, then no goods would reach Britain. Along with Britain, the US was also sending supplies to the Soviet Union, so that would be cut off as well. In this way, the German plan was that they would ultimately be able to defeat both Britain and the Soviet Union. Because of this, the German Navy's U-boats, their submarines, put full effort into attacking ships in the Atlantic Ocean. They targeted and tried to sink all the merchant ships coming from America. This caused great concern for the British. They knew that if the U-boat attacks continued, they would not receive supplies, and they might eventually be forced to make some kind of compromise or treaty with Germany. Because of all this, British naval commanders were focusing heavily on finding out where the German U-boats were positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. If they could determine their positions, they could reroute their ships through safer paths, avoiding areas where the U-boats were deployed, so that British and American ships would not have to face these German submarines. But now, how could they find out where the German U-boats actually were? The Atlantic Ocean is vast, so the only way to determine their positions was this. If the Enigma code could be cracked, then they would be able to read all German naval communications. That way, they would know where the ships were deployed, where they were receiving supplies, where they needed refueling. Everything would become clear. In Britain, there was a particular place in London that was very secret and highly confidential. This place was called Bletchley Park. Inside Bletchley Park, all the codebreakers and interceptors were working. Their job was to first intercept German messages, then decode them. and passed the information on to British commanders. Everyone at Bletchley Park knew that the Germans were using the Enigma machine. One important thing about the Enigma machine is that it wasn't just a single machine. There were many variations of it, and Germany didn't use it only in the military. Many years earlier, around 1930, it was also being used in German manufacturing industries. Later, when the German military realized how useful this machine was, so they made some changes and improvements to it. And then the German military also started using that machine. After the war began, the Allies managed to capture German Enigma machines from different places. But the most strategically important event is said to have happened in 1941. When sailors from a British ship boarded and captured a German U-boat. They boarded the submarine and retrieved the Enigma machine from it. The code name of that German U-boat was German submarine U-100. After extracting the Enigma machine and its related settings from this U-boat, the British sank it, so that the Germans would believe that the Enigma machine on board had gone down with the submarine. It was crucial that the Germans did not find out that the British had captured the Enigma machine, along with its rotors and settings. Sometime after this, a major breakthrough occurred at Bletchley Park, where they successfully decoded the system in such a way that they could now read German messages. There was also a very famous Hollywood movie made about this called The Imitation Game. After watching that movie, many people think that the British were the first to crack the Enigma machine. But that is not correct. In reality, some Polish cryptographers had already cracked this machine earlier. It is said that they managed to break it in 1930. However, in 1939, the same year Germany invaded Poland, those Polish cryptographers shared their research related to cracking the Enigma machine. They also had data and had even built a machine called the Bomba. All the information related to this machine was given to the British. Later, Alan Turing and his team improved that machine further. Their story was shown in the movie The Imitation Game. Eventually, the system they built and used to crack these codes was given the code name Ultra. Using Ultra, Britain was able to decode many German codes and intercept a large number of their communications. Because of this, Britain could constantly find out where the German U-boats were and where they were planning to attack. So here, we are talking about the war scenario. What would have happened if the British had not been able to crack the German Enigma code? The first point is about the biggest battle of World War II, the Battle of the Atlantic. It began in 1939, when German U-boats started attacking American and British shipping in the Atlantic Ocean, and it ended in 1945. So, the Battle of the Atlantic lasted almost 6 years, essentially the entire duration of World War II. If the Allies had not been able to crack the Enigma code, the Battle of the Atlantic would have lasted even longer. And if it had gone on longer, the Americans and the British would have suffered much greater losses to their shipping. The impact of this would have been significant. The Americans had transported a massive amount of supplies across the Atlantic to Britain in preparation for the Normandy landings. All of that would have taken more time. The buildup of forces and materials in Europe would have been delayed, and as a result, the Normandy landings would likely have been postponed further. So that was the first impact if the Enigma code had not been cracked. The second impact is actually more interesting because it involves the North African theater. But we'll talk about that in the second part. If you enjoyed the video, press the like button and do consider subscribing. Comment down your thoughts. Till then, keep thinking.